Okay. First question. How should a person practicing meditation behave and prepare for the last minutes before death?
Oh, that's a very good question. Very good question. As I mentioned yesterday, when our mind always not with greed, hatred and delusion. Periodically they arise and they vanish. As soon as they arise, we experience pain. As they go away, we experience pleasure. This yo-yo situation, so to say, always happens in our life. So what we have to do, we remain mindful. Mindful means that whatever arises passes away. Whatever arises, it passes away. Whatever arises, this mantra, like a mantra, we repeat this. Sometimes verbally, sometimes thinking, sometimes feeling. Something rises and falls. Once it is arisen and fallen, there will no longer be even a trace of it to find it. New things arise. For instance, greed, if you focus the mind on greed, and when greed arises and it passes away, when you see it's impermanent, it brings pain, it causes suffering. When you see these disadvantages or the number, then it cannot stay in our mind. It disappears. When we mindfully reflect, this is called Yoniso Manasikara. Yoniso Manasikara. Or in brief, mindfulness. When we remain mindfulness of these three characteristics of everything, greed, hatred and delusion. Greed, hatred and delusion. You keep training your mind all the time. All the time. Perhaps if your practice is very intensive, very serious, then these defilements like greed, hatred and delusion, each of them you have to deal with the same way. Each of them is impermanent, unsatisfactory and selfless. Unsatisfactory because each of them brings pain and suffering. Greed brings suffering, hatred brings suffering, delusion brings suffering. But greed is impermanent, hate is impermanent, delusion is impermanent. So, when you see impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, you also see that there is no substance in it to stay behind. That is selflessness. This is a big subject. Anyway, you see this all the time. Without any exception, you see this all the time. When you do that, one day you will see your doubt fades away and your what you call belief in rituals, belief in the attainment of liberation by following rituals fade away, and your belief in permanent self in 20 ways also disappear. 20 ways means in 5 aggregates, you see the notion, it is a notion of self, 4 ways in each aggregate. 4 ways in each aggregate multiplied by 5, you have 20 ways of arising notion of self. 60 ways of arising ignorance, what you call craving. We mentioned that earlier. And along with that, delusion also arises. When these three, what we call fetters, that is doubt, believing in following rituals you can attain enlightenment, that belief, and then the notion of self. These are called three fetters. When even one of them disappears from your mind, you enters the stream entry. That is the Noble Eightfold Path in the supramundane level. Stream is a Noble Eightfold Path, nothing else. Stream entry means attaining that Noble Eightfold Path with the supramundane level. That is not mundane level, because ordinary people do not see impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and selflessness of anything. But you see it so clearly, and then when you see them very clearly, experience very clearly, very often, every day, one day, all these three fetters will vanish from your mind. You enter the stream entry fruition state. First, the path state by attaining Noble Eightfold Path in that level, and that means realizing Noble Eightfold Path very clearly. You enter the stream entry path first, and then you keep repeating following Noble Eightfold Path again and again and again. See mindfulness, with mindfulness, impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and selflessness. You keep these exercises again and again and again, and you attain stream entry and stream entry fruition. That can happen any time in your life. Whether when you are young, it can attain. When you are old, you can attain that. And if you did not attain this state at these two stages, young, middle age, and old age, you will attain it. If you did not attain the stream entry when you are young, or when you are in middle age, or when you are an old person, you will attain that state at the moment of death. This is the guarantee that Buddha has given us. You keep practicing and practicing without any hesitation, any doubt in this teaching, in the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. And that is how you can keep your mind on the track, and you will attain that state in this very life, at least at the moment of death. Then you must be 100% guaranteed that you will not be reborn in a woeful state of existence. The worst you will be reborn would be human world, the best life, human life. Why? It is only human being that can attain Buddhahood. So, that is the answer to your question. Next question. I have always felt that it's better to be alone at the time of death, thus giving one the space to reflect on the past activities, good deeds performed, without having people around you, behaving, talking unintentionally in a way that might disturb the person, disturb the peace. Assuming one is of sound mind at the time of death, not suffering from dementia or similar. Do you think this is a good way to go? I think if the person is in good sound mind, without Alzheimer or dementia. The person has been practicing meditation, always mindful, and everything in his personality he understands mindfully. All that person needs is a peace to go peacefully. And therefore, I would say being alone at the moment of death is the best for that person. Unfortunately, there are many friends and relatives who, when somebody is going to pass away, many very good friends with very good intention do many things to the person dying person. If they all know the dying person has been meditating, has been mindful, does not have dementia, so any other ailment to disturb the mind, the person will stay mindfully. But the other people, their friends and relatives and so on, since they have been associating with the dying person for many years, since they have been sharing many things in life together, and their attachment to the dying person is very great. It is unquestionably great attachment, emotional attachment. And because those emotional attachment, they think it is their obligation, their duty, responsibility to do something for the dying person. So they do many beautiful chanting, talks, perhaps maybe Dhamma talks, and singing songs, talking good things about this person. All this they do with a very good intention. However, the person who has been practicing mindfulness knows all this, knows that these people have been his or her friends, relatives. They all really love this dying person. They care for him or her. The dying person knows all this. And therefore he does not need any additional chanting, singing, talking, praising, how grateful they are and so forth. None of these things he wants to hear. He doesn't want to hear any of these things. He knows all of them. He knows these people are his friends or his or her friends, relatives, concerned, loving, supporting. They don't want him or her to die. All this he knows. And therefore, all that person needs is quiet time. Just to be mindful and pass away mindfully without any disturbance. He may not be disturbed negatively when they talk about him and praising and so on. He may be, if he is not, very mindful, he enjoy all these things and listen to them. He may pass away and pass away with attachment to them, because they talk about attaching things, kind things, loving things, and he or she passes away with some attachment to these people because they are that person's friends or relatives. But the person wants to pass away without thinking of anybody else, how good they are. Simply be mindful, and mindfully passes away just like a flame of a candle goes out when wind blows. Perhaps if the person has not attained enlightenment by then, if he has been practicing meditation all the time, being mindful, that moment he can attain enlightenment. And Buddha said that. Maranakali means the moment of death. The person has been, Buddha said, if the person has been practicing meditation all his life, if he does not attain enlightenment at the early stage, he may attain in the middle age, he may attain at the old age, or he may attain full enlightenment at the moment of death. So this silent, quiet moment is so precious and so valuable, so important, even for attainment of full enlightenment. And therefore, if relatives and friends know that this person living very good life, good life means not in the mundane sense, a material sense, but spiritual sense, practicing Dhamma, practicing meditation, and now he needs quiet time. Let us not talk. Let us move away. Let him be alone. And when he breathe last breath, let us watch. Let us watch without talking and see how he passes away peacefully. I think that's a very good message.
Here's another question. What is the best way to assist someone who is in hospice care, end of life situation?
I think that is the best way to help that person is to make the person aware without getting upset, emotional. Try to pay attention to the breath and see how breath comes and goes, comes and goes, comes and goes, and see how breath is becoming subtler and subtler and subtler. The person can become very calm, peaceful all the time. Of course, I heard that they are given morphine and so forth to make them feel comfortable if they are in pain. But before this morphine was introduced or discovered, the Buddha used this method to make our mind calm, relaxed and peaceful. Even in that state, you might have heard that when the Buddha was suffering from diarrhea and he was utterly dehydrated and there was no saline or anything those days, and yet because of the Buddha's perfectly enlightened state of mind, he was able to remain calm and peaceful because he used his breath free from greed, hatred and delusion. Pure and clean air was moving back and forth, the mind is lodged, connected with this air, and the mind becomes very much like air, no feeling. Air doesn't have feeling. Air doesn't have perception. Air doesn't have consciousness. Air is just air. He made this mind just like pure air and passed away. All enlightened persons can pass away even when they have physical aches and pains, as they learn to pay attention to the breath. So, even somebody is in hospice, we have to encourage the person to be quite aware of the reality of impermanence. When we say everything is impermanent, sometimes people can become emotional, but we can tell them how to pay attention to the breath and focus the mind on the breath and become aware of breath rising and falling. What we do there is teaching them how to become mindful of impermanence without using the word impermanence, and notice rising and falling. That is 100% true. Breath is rises and fall. Breath is rising and falling, rising and falling. If you were to use very deep dependent origination teaching at that time, sometimes people may not grasp it. But if we can tell them, yes, whatever arises, when it arises, you feel that arising. Whenever it is passing away, you feel that passing. So we can teach that the person to stay in that particular way, so that the mind will be calm, relaxed, and peaceful. I think my time is up now, and thank you very much for asking these good questions. And let me wind down our this morning session. Thank you for